from the European settlers. This is back, and I think maybe early 1800s, late 1700s. Yeah, about that time period. And what he noticed was the European settlers had writing. They had paper with writing on it. And they called those talking leaves. And the Native Americans had no written language of any kind. And so he thought that was really great, and he took it upon himself to create a written language for his language, to create the writing. And he did it. It took him a long time, and his wife almost killed him. She had had enough of that, because it was driving everybody crazy. And it really almost killed him to do this. But when he got it completed, no one wanted to learn it. So what he did was he got his daughter to learn it. And he took his daughter to these various tribes, Cherokee tribes, and he would try to basically sell this to the chiefs. And they had wanted no part of it. And finally what happened was he did a little trick. He took his daughter and he put her in a tent away from everything. And then he had the chief give a speech. She couldn't hear it. And he wrote the speech down in his language, right? This writing he created. Then after the speech, they got the daughter and she read it back to them. That was it. It was sold. And that language was spread among all the Cherokee people. So in Europe, there was a man named Endlicher. He was German. And what Endlicher did was, he was a botanist and he named plants, and also he created a written language for Europeans of a Chinese language. He did a similar thing but with Chinese. Right? And he was so impressed with Sequoia that he named this tree after it.
Okay, then I'll take pictures.
Sequoia went on to travel to Mexico to teach the Indians there the language, and he was killed going to Mexico somehow. And that was it. Okay. So you probably all know this is a palm tree. And we talked about these, they're not branched, right? There's no branching. And what you have is an apical meristem at the top making those leaves. And then it keeps growing taller. Down here, see all these stripes going around, these rings that go around? Those are the old leaf bases. That's where the leaves used to be attached and they fell off. They're called leaf scars. And every one of these rings should have an axillary bud around it. There should be a bud on every one of them, but they're dormant and they don't grow. What else? Look at the leaves. The leaves are fan-shaped, aren't they? They look like fans. And because of that, it's called a fan palm. The other kind of palms are feather palms, and the leaf looks more like a feather shape. Kind of like that compound leaf we drew on the board. This is a different shape for the leaf. This is more this kind of shape. The name. This is called the California fan palm. It's a native to California, just like the redwood tree. And the genus is Washingtonia. Okay. So it's the name Washington with an IA. Washington with an IA. The epithet is filifera. 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 What's ifer mean? To bear. Philly is thread. It's Latin for thread. It means it bears threads. What is it talking about? There are fibers coming off the leaves, hanging off the leaves. Those are the threads. Again, it's explaining something about the plant. The way it looks. It's native to California, but it's native only to the desert in Southern California. You guys know where Palm Springs is? That's about where it is. There's a population there, and then further out in the desert toward Phoenix, you have additional populations. Let me explain how this works. This tree needs water all year long. So is that a common thing in the desert? No. There are only a few places in the desert where the water comes near the surface. The water table is shallow enough that it can get its roots into it. And that's where they grow. And those places are very few and far between. When you get such a spot where the water is shallow like that, that's called an oasis. So that's where the palms grow, in the oasis. We have native palm oases, but they're only in the Colorado low desert, which is out there where Palm Springs and Palm Desert is, and that's what it's named for. In Palm Springs, there's a place called Palm Canyon, and it's a very large oasis. It's huge, and it's the famous one. There's also one out about, I don't know, another 3 hours east of there in the middle of the desert called Corn Springs. And why do you think it's called Corn Springs? What do you think they used to grow there? Corn. Can you grow corn in the middle of the desert? You can if there's water. And in this site there is an oasis. And the creek is the water table is so shallow that they could actually grow corn there. The Native American, California Native American. And there's a bunch of petroglyphs or artwork all over the rock from thousands of years ago. That's another site of a natural oasis. That's all federally owned. You can camp there. There aren't a lot of other ones. They're pretty rare. There's one in Joshua Tree, if you know where that is, Joshua Tree National Park, which is just kind of north of Palm Springs, north and east of it. That one was planted by people, that's not a natural. So these are pretty scarce trees. Palms are tropical plants. And this is not a tropical zone. This is subtropical. So this is not palm country. Costa Rica is palm country, in the middle of the tropics. That's where palms grow. So this is the northernmost palm in the western U.S. Remember we talked about the cycads, how they're tropical too? But there's that one, the sago palm, that can handle it further. It's kind of like this. Mexico has several palm species. There's the Mexican fan palm and the blue palm. Those grow here too. They can handle it here. They're a little different looking. The Mexican fan palm is taller and skinnier. Otherwise it looks the same. And the blue palm, of which there are some in Victory Park, right here at the Hagen Museum, they're much shorter and broader. And they're a different color. Those are the three common ones you're going to see around. You go to Southern California, you get a lot of other palms from all over the world. There's also an Asian palm called the windmill palm we can get here. And we have a couple on campus, very small. We also have the Canary Island date palm, which is from the Atlantic Ocean on the islands. And that's another one on campus. So, but as far as natives, this is it. The only one in California. Native Americans used to take the seeds of this, which are basically drupes, and they would grind up the pits and they would make a flour out of it and eat it. They would also cut the young trees and eat the pulp inside as food, which is starchy. This is not real wood. See how fibrous it is? If you cut this open and expect to find like a piece of oak or something in there, you're not. It's very spongy and fibrous. You really couldn't make a piece of furniture out of it. You dicots make true wood. is a monocot. This is a monocot tree. It really doesn't make real wood. Monocots normally aren't trees. The grass is a monocot. That's typical. This is rather unusual. You know any palms we eat?
Dates.
We eat dates. That's a palm, the fruit of a palm. And anything else? Coconuts. Coconut is also from a palm. And there's some exotic things like pehibahi and betel nut. You guys ever heard of betel nut? From places like Indonesia. Chew on it, turns your spit red, makes you high.